My name is Julian Cole, the one and only heir to a corporate empire so vast, it's terminally boring. To cure my supposed ennui, my dad tossed me into our own company as an intern. My direct supervisor is the legendary Ice Queen CEO, Ava Monroe. She thinks I'm some useless hack who got the job through connections. My colleagues think I'm just a slacker filling a seat. They don't know I wrote the company's foundational code in a fit of boredom years ago. They also don't know that the competitor currently giving them sleepless nights is a company owned by my childhood best friend. And they definitely don't know that the real reason I come to work every day is to get a front row seat to the circus and see just how ridiculous this corporate elite can be. This is the art of being the Nepo baby. No office romances, no messy entanglements. My mission is pure, unadulterated entertainment, and maybe, just maybe, knocking a few people off their high horses. Well, my name is Julian Cole. I was late on my first day of work. Perfect. The useless intern persona had to be established from day one, starting with my time card. The woman from HR who led me to the CEO's office suite wore a complicated expression. She wanted to scold me, but she didn't dare. I was, after all, hand-delivered by the chairman himself. A textbook Nepo baby. She knocked on the heavy oak door. "Come in." The voice was cold, like soda water fresh from the fridge. I pushed the door open. The office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking half of Midtown Manhattan. A woman sat behind a massive desk. She wore a perfectly tailored black pantsuit, her long hair pulled back in a severe, impeccable bun. She didn't look up, her eyes glued to a document. "Ms. Monroe, this is the new intern, Julian Cole," the HR rep said, her voice trembling slightly. The woman behind the desk, Ava Monroe, was our company CEO, the queen of the corporate world. She finally lifted her head. Her eyes were beautiful, but held no emotion, like two black marbles. Her gaze swept over me, from my wrinkled t-shirt to my scuffed-up Converse sneakers that were threatening to fall apart. It finally landed on my face. I gave her a little smile. She didn't return it. Her brow furrowed, an almost imperceptible movement. "I've seen your resume," she said, her voice quiet but sharp enough to cut glass. "A third-rate university overseas, a major that has nothing to do with this industry, and zero relevant work experience." She paused, picking up my resume from her desk with 2 fingers, as if it were something contaminated. "Julian, I don't care who you know. Here, you have 2 options. Either prove you have value, or get the hell out." She dropped the resume into the trash can beside her desk. The movement was slight, but the insult was deafening. The HR rep held her breath. I just kept smiling. "You got it, Ms. Monroe," I said. "I'll work hard to make sure I don't have to get the hell out." Ava's gaze turned even colder. She probably decided I wasn't just useless, but shameless too. She pressed a button on her intercom. "Send Mark Johnson to my office." A moment later, a middle-aged man with a receding hairline came scurrying in. "Ms. Monroe, you wanted to see me?" "This is the new intern, Julian Cole," Ava said, gesturing toward me. "Take him to your project team. Find something within his capabilities for him to do." She enunciated "within his capabilities" with deliberate, cutting emphasis. Mark, the project manager, understood immediately. Of course, Ms. Monroe. Don't you worry." He led me out of the office. The moment the door closed, his face changed, melting into an oily smile. "Julian, right? Great to have you. You've got a bright future, I can tell." I figure my only notable quality so far was my thick skin, but I played along. "You're too kind, Mark." "Not at all. Not at all," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "We're all one big family here. Our team is swamped with a major project right now, running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Since you're new, just take your time getting to know the place. No rush to start working." He showed me to an empty desk. "This is you. Brand new computer. Anything you need, just let me know." "And my assignments?" I asked. "No hurry on that," Mark said with another grin. "Why don't you start by reading through some company materials? Get a feel for our corporate culture." He handed me a thick employee handbook. I flipped it open. The first page was a glossy photo of Ava Monroe, followed by a list of her dazzling achievements. Ivy League, dual degrees, straight to a top investment bank on Wall Street, made VP in 3 years, then headhunted by my dad. In 5 years, she'd increased the company's market value tenfold. She was a certified badass. No wonder she looked down on a slacker like me. I placed the handbook over my face and settled in for a nap. If you're going to cosplay as a useless intern, you have to go all in. I don't know how long I slept. The sharp click of high heels grew closer, stopping right beside my desk. I didn't move. Julian Cole. It was Ava. I removed the handbook from my face and rubbed my eyes. Ms. Monroe, what can I do for you? Mark was standing behind her, sweating bullets. The rest of the office staff had their heads buried in their work, trying to become invisible. Is this how you're familiarizing yourself with our corporate culture? Ava asked. Reporting Ms. Monroe, I said, holding up the handbook. I finished it. It was so profound. I required a period of sleep for proper digestion and reflection. A few stifled snickers echoed through the quiet office. Ava's face turned to stone. Mark, she said, not even bothering to look at me anymore, if your project team has this much free time, perhaps I should assign you a few more cases. Mark's face went pale. No, we're not free at all, Ms. Monroe. We're busy, incredibly busy. If you're so busy, Ava's eyes locked back onto me, then give him a real task. For instance, have him organize and archive all project documents from the past 5 years. Mark froze. All of them. Ms. Monroe, that's hundreds of gigabytes of data. Is there a problem? No problem at all. Ava turned and walked away, the click of her heels echoing in her wake. She left behind a trail of perfume that smelled like do not approach. Mark, looking like he was about to cry, pointed me to a drive on the server. Kid, it's not that I don't want to help you, but... It's fine, Mark, I said, clicking open the folder. The file names were a chaotic mess. Final_version. Final_approved version. Final more changes. Swear to God this is the final version. It was definitely a task within my capabilities. A normal person would need a week to sort through it. In front of Mark, I opened the first document. Then I opened Microsoft Minesweeper. Mark's mouth opened and closed, but he ended up just sighing and walking away. I played Minesweeper all afternoon. Just before quitting time, I stretched lazily. Then, I selected the massive folder. I wrote a batch script, less than 10 lines of code, setting up rules for renaming, keyword categorization, and automatic directory generation. Double-click. A progress bar appeared. I went to the break room and made a cup of coffee. By the time I got back, the bar was at 100%. Hundreds of gigabytes of chaotic files were now neatly organized, categorized, and fully indexed. I finished my coffee, clocked out, and went home. The next day, I strolled in just as the clock hit 9. As soon as I sat down, Mark rushed over. Julian, those documents. All done, I said. Done. He looked at me in disbelief. Where are they? I pointed to my monitor. He skeptically sat down and opened the folder. Then he froze. He scrolled through the neatly organized files, his expression shifting from disbelief to shock, and finally, to seeing a ghost. You did all this by yourself? In one afternoon? Yeah, I yawned. It was just a little clicking and dragging. Not too hard. Mark stared at me like I was an alien. Just then, Ava Monroe came striding through the office on her 4-inch heels, making her daily inspection. How is the document organization coming along? She asked Mark, though her eyes, tinged with mockery, were fixed on me. She probably assumed I hadn't touched a single file. Mark shot up from his chair. Ms. Monroe, why don't you see for yourself? He turned the monitor toward her. Ava's gaze fell on the screen. 1 second. 2 seconds. For the first time, a crack appeared in her icy facade, revealing an emotion I'd never seen on her before. Surprise. Ava's surprise lasted all of 3 seconds. She quickly regained her everything is under control expression. It seems you have a knack for file management, she said, her tone flat, making it impossible to tell if it was a compliment or a criticism. I guess, I said. I used to help the librarian at my university. I wasn't lying. I found the university library's search system so terrible that I'd rewritten the whole thing for them as a side project. The librarian was so grateful, she insisted on buying me lunch. Ava didn't respond. She gave me another look, this one more complex than before, then clicked away on her heels. Mark leaned in, whispering, Julian, be honest with me. Are you a wolf in sheep's clothing? Not at all, I said. I'm genuinely a slacker. Then how did you? Practice makes perfect, I guess. He didn't look convinced, but he didn't press the issue. I was the Nepo baby, after all. Having a few hidden talents wasn't out of the question. After that incident, my status in the department underwent a subtle shift. They still thought I was useless, but now I was a somewhat useful, kind of useless. At the very least, they'd call me over for their computer problems. Julian, why is my computer showing a blue screen? Julian, I can't get the printer to connect. My solutions were consistently low-tech. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Try unplugging it and plugging it back in. That solved 90% of the problems. For the other 10%, I just say, it's broken. You should file a ticket with IT. The slacker persona could not be compromised. One morning, a company-wide email announced a mandatory team-building retreat in the Poconos over the weekend. 2 days, 1 night. I groaned just reading the subject line. Team building was just another way to torment corporate drones in a different location. Sure enough, on Friday afternoon, a few coach buses hauled us out to some godforsaken resort. The event was led by a hyper-enthusiastic manager from HR. As soon as we got off the bus, he started handing out cheap, ill-fitting camouflage outfits. All right, team, to forge our spirits of steel, we will now engage in a series of challenging activities. First up, he cleared his throat dramatically. The three-legged race. I looked at the group of programmers around me, their faces blank with despair in their camo gear, and thought the whole scene was surreal. Ava was there, too. She hadn't donned the camo, opting for a sleek, athletic outfit instead. But even she couldn't escape the mandatory fun. Her expression was even frostier than usual. Team pairings were determined by a random draw. I looked at the number in my hand. 7. Then I watched as Ava, with an air of resignation, pulled a slip of paper from the box. She unfolded it. It was also a 7. I felt the temperature around me drop by 20 degrees. Ava saw the number in my hand. She didn't say a word, but her eyes screamed, "Of all people, why this useless idiot? What could I do?" I was in despair, too. The HR manager blew his whistle. We were forced to stand together as he tied one of my legs to one of hers with a red cloth band. Her leg was slender and straight, and even through her pants, I could feel the firm line of her calf muscle, not soft but toned from regular workouts. "Don't slow me down," she said, her voice a cold whisper. "Don't you worry, Ms. Monroe. I'll stick to you like glue," I replied with a grin. The race began. The whistle shrieked, and chaos erupted as teams stumbled and fell over each other. Ava, however, had a natural rhythm. Left, right, she commanded. I tried my best to keep up, but I was supposed to be a slacker. I had to commit to the role. After a few steps, I let out a yelp and tripped, stumbling directly into her. I was close enough to catch the scent of her hair. Not a heavy perfume, but a light, clean shampoo that smelled like a forest after the rain. Ava's body went rigid as she instinctively caught me. Her arms were surprisingly strong. "What are you doing?" she hissed, her voice tight with suppressed fury. I slipped, I said, quickly righting myself. "Follow my lead. You got it, Ms. Monroe." We started again. This time I behaved, no longer daring to pull any stunts. Ava was a great athlete with an excellent sense of rhythm. We quickly overtook the clumsy pairs ahead of us. The finish line was just ahead. We were in second place, right behind 2 gym bros. As we neared the end, I realized my performance had been far too competent for a slacker. I had to salvage my reputation. So just 10 feet from the finish line, my shoelace accidentally came untied. Then I accidentally stepped on it. And then I took a spectacular face-first dive into the dirt, bringing Ava down with me. This time, she landed on top of me. The entire field went silent. Everyone stopped and stared. Ava's face was less than 4 inches from mine. I could see the fine, soft hairs on her skin. For the first time, her eyes showed an emotion other than anger. It was shock, mixed with a flicker of panic. Her breath came in short, warm puffs against my cheek. "Did you do that on purpose?" she asked through clenched teeth. My shoelace came undone. Ms. Monroe looked. I pointed to my foot with an expression of pure innocence. She glanced down, and then she fell silent. She scrambled off me, brushed herself off, and untied the band from her leg. Without another word, she walked toward the finish line. We came in last. The HR manager tried to smooth things over. Hey, it's not about winning. It's about participating. Friendship first, competition second. I saw Ava's back, her shoulders trembling slightly. I had a feeling it wasn't from the cold. It was from pure rage. That evening featured a bonfire party. Everyone gathered around the fire, singing songs and playing games. The HR manager was in his element. Next up, a classic game of truth or dare. The bottles started spinning. Everyone looked nervous. Everyone except me. I was focused on the roasted chicken skewer in my hand. The resort's chicken was surprisingly good. The bottle spun several times, landing on a few people who received trivial penalties. And then, the fickle finger of fate pointed directly at Ava Monroe. The crowd erupted in cheers. Everyone was dying to get some gossip on the Ice Queen CEO. Ms. Monroe, truth or dare? The HR manager asked, his face alight with schadenfreude. Truth, Ava said curtly. The manager rubbed his hands together. Excellent. The question on everyone's mind. Ms. Monroe, are you currently in a relationship? Every ear in the vicinity perked up. Ava took a sip of her sparkling water. The firelight danced across her face, masking her expression. No. Her answer was swift. In that case, the manager started to press. One question. You're done. Ava cut him off, her tone leaving no room for argument. The manager reluctantly spun the bottle again. This time, it stopped pointing squarely at me. I tossed the chicken skewer into the fire. I'll take a dare. Truth was boring. If I told them the truth, they wouldn't believe me anyway. The HR manager's eyes lit up. All right, a man of action. He huddled with a few others, whispering and giggling, before turning back to me with a wicked grin. Julian, your dare is. He pointed a finger. To ask our CEO, Ms. Monroe, for a dance. I followed his finger. Ava was sitting in the shadows at the edge of the firelight. Hearing her name, she looked up, her gaze cutting through the flickering flames to meet mine. It was a look that could kill. A look that said, I dare you to even try. Every eye at the bonfire was on me. Some looks were sympathetic, some were gleeful, and most were just morbidly curious. Mark was frantically signaling for me to back down. Dancing with the Ice Queen? That wasn't a dare, it was a death wish. I wiped the grease from my hands, stood up, and, to the shock of everyone present, walked toward Ava Monroe. Of course, I knew she was furious. I had just sabotaged her into last place that afternoon, and now I was going to ask her to dance. It was madness. But who was I, a slacker with nothing to lose? The persona had to be maintained. I stopped in front of her. She remained seated, looking up at me as the fire cast my long shadow over her. Ms. Monroe, I said, extending my hand in a formal invitation. May I have this dance? Her gaze dropped from my face to my outstretched hand, then back up again. I saw her knuckles turn white as she gripped her glass. The office gossips were probably expecting her to explode. Some looked ready to drag me away for my own safety. But Ava didn't explode. She was silent for a few seconds. Then, she placed her hand in mine. Her hand was cool and soft. I froze for a second. That was not in the script. The logical outcome was a glass of water to the face and a sharp, know your place. But that's not what happened. She stood up. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. The HR manager quickly cued the music. It was a slow, classic waltz. I led her to the center of the clearing. My other hand rested gently on her waist. It was slender, and even through her clothes, I could feel an astonishing litheness. Her body tensed for a moment, but she didn't pull away. As the music began, I started to lead. I wasn't bluffing. I could dance. My mother was a professional dancer who had drilled more than a dozen styles into me since I was a child. The waltz was lesson one. At first, Ava's steps were a bit stiff and hesitant. It was clear she knew how, but it had probably been a long time. I slowed the tempo, guiding her. Her ability to learn was incredible. After just a few bars, she fell perfectly in step with me. We twirled, drew close, and separated in time with the music. The bonfire crackled beside us, and the onlookers had fallen silent, all of them watching us. I looked down at her. In the warm glow of the fire, the icy mask on her face had melted away slightly. A thin layer of perspiration beaded on her forehead, and her breathing was a little quicker. Her eyes were incredibly bright, like stars. You can dance, she spoke first, her voice a little hoarse. My mom taught me, I said. You never know when a skill might come in handy. So, you're not completely useless? Oh, I am, I grinned. Just a useless person who happens to know how to dance. She didn't reply, but I felt the tension in her body ease. As I led her into a wide spin, her hand instinctively tightened on my shoulder. The song ended. We came to a stop. I released her hand and gave a slight bow. Thank you, Ms. Monroe. She looked at me, her expression a complex mix of surprise, scrutiny, and something else. Something I couldn't decipher. You. She started to say something, but the surrounding applause and cheering drowned her out. Wow, that was amazing. Ms. Monroe, you're a fantastic dancer. Julian, who knew you had it in you? She swallowed whatever she was going to say, gave me a curt nod, and returned to her seat. I scratched my nose and walked back to my spot. Mark came over and punched my shoulder. Dude, how did you pull that off? You even managed to charm the Ice Queen. Luck. Pure luck. The rest of the retreat was uneventful. Ava didn't participate in any more games. She just sat quietly, sipping her water and staring into the fire. I could feel her eyes on me from time to time, but whenever I looked over, she would quickly glance away. When we got back to the office, it was like nothing had changed. I was still the intern who showed up late and slacked off all day. Ava was still the CEO with a 2-mile-long, intimidating aura. The waltz felt like a dream. Only she and I knew that something was different. For instance, she now left a cup of hot coffee on my desk every morning. Black, no sugar. Bitter. Just her style. She would say nothing, just put it down and walk away. The entire office saw it. Mark's way of looking at me shifted from, this is the Nepo baby, to this is royalty. My colleagues started calling me J-Man. They were convinced something was going on between me and the boss. There was no way I could explain myself out of this one. Then, the company landed a massive project. A global tech firm was looking for AU's partner. The deal was worth over $1 billion. The entire company went into a frenzy. Ava personally led the charge, forming a special task force and holding endless meetings. As an intern, I wasn't qualified to attend. My job was to order their lunches. One afternoon, they emerged from a meeting, and everyone looked grim, especially Ava. Her face was colder than usual, like a Siberian cold front had just blown through. I handed her a takeout box. Ms. Monroe, time for lunch. She didn't take it. I'm not hungry. With that, she disappeared into her office. Mark came over, sighing as he took his lunch. What happened? I asked. Don't ask, he said. We're stuck. The lead negotiator from the other company, some guy named David, is impossible to please. His demands are ridiculous. We've revised our proposal half a dozen times, and he shot down every single one. Is he that good? Who knows? Mark grumbled, poking at his salad without any appetite. It feels like he's intentionally trying to screw with us. He took 2 bites and gave up. If we don't land this deal, our annual bonuses are toast. I listened without saying anything. Returning to my desk, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to a contact named Leo, the lizard. Are you sicking some guy named David on my company? The reply was instant. Jules, how'd you know? Holy crap, is that your company? I had no idea. Leo the lizard, my best friend, real name Leo Vance. The global tech firm was his family's. I texted back. Tell him to get his, but on a plane and sign the contract. Otherwise, I'm sending that picture of you wetting the bed at summer camp to your wife. The response was even faster. Don't. Dude, my brother. I'll have him flying over there to sign it on his knees, I swear. I put my phone away and glanced at the CEO's office. The door was closed. I picked up a lunchbox and walked over. I knocked. Enter. I went in. Ava was standing by the window, her back to me, looking out at the city. Her silhouette seemed a little lonely. Ms. Monroe, an army marches on its stomach, I said, placing the food on her desk. Whatever it is, you'll handle it better on a full stomach. She didn't turn around. I said, I'm not hungry. How are you going to fight those bastards if you don't eat? I asked. My bluntness seemed to amuse her. Her shoulders shook slightly. She turned around. What does an intern know about any of this? I don't know anything, I said, but I do know that if you fall, we all go hungry. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she walked to the desk, picked up the fork, and quietly started to eat. I didn't leave. I just stood there until she finished. She put down her fork and looked at me. Thank you. Don't mention it. I was about to leave when her phone rang. She picked it up. Hello. What? David, what about him? What? He wants to sign immediately. A complete 180-degree turn. Okay, yes, I understand. She hung up, completely stunned. Her face was a mask of disbelief. She looked up at me, her gaze sharp, like she was looking at some kind of alien. This was your doing, wasn't it? What was my doing? I looked at her, my face a perfect picture of confusion. Method acting. You have to feel it from the inside out. Ava stared me down, her eyes filled with suspicion. That was David's assistant. He's insisting on signing the contract immediately, but on one condition. The contract has to be signed by the project team's intern, Julian Cole. She delivered the line with slow, deliberate precision. He said, and I quote, "Only he has the authority to sign." In my head, I cursed Leo 1,000 times over. That moron. I told him to get the deal signed, not to put on a Broadway show. This wasn't helping. It was putting me on trial by fire. But on the outside, I maintained my shocked and innocent expression. Me? Why? I don't even know the guy. That's what I'd like to know, Ava said, taking a step closer. Her presence was powerful, almost suffocating. Julian, who are you? It was the third time she had asked me that question. I had a sinking feeling my cover as a useless slacker was about to be blown. I was still trying to come up with a plausible lie when my phone rang. The caller ID read, Dad. A wave of relief washed over me. The cavalry had arrived. I answered the phone in front of her, putting it on speaker. Hey, Dad. Julian, my father's booming voice came through the speaker. How are things at the company? Getting used to it? That young woman, Ava, she isn't giving you a hard time, is she? I could see Ava's body go completely rigid. Her eyes widened in shock. No, not at all, I said. Ms. Monroe has been great to me. Good, my dad said. Just calling to check in. By the way, did you help out with your Uncle Leo's international project? He just called to thank me, said you solved the whole thing with a single phone call. My dad's voice was loud in the quiet office. Ava's expression had morphed from suspicion to utter petrification. Dad, it's a long story. I know. You've always been capable, my dad chuckled. When you're tired of experiencing life at the bottom, just let Ava know. Have her set you up with a VP position. Just don't work yourself too hard. Got it, Dad. That's all for now. I got a meeting. The line went dead. I slid my phone back into my pocket and looked at the completely stunned Ava Monroe. I cleared my throat. So, Ms. Monroe, it's exactly what you just heard. I guess the gig is up. The truth is, I'm the chairman's son. I had hoped for a gentler reveal, but now a hard landing was the only option. Ava didn't speak. She just stared at me, her expression shifting rapidly through a storm of emotions, from shock to dawning realization, and finally, to a complex mixture of anger and humiliation. I could see her replaying the last 2 months in her head, making me organize files, watching me make a fool of myself at the retreat, bringing me black coffee every morning. She thought she was disciplining a useless subordinate. In reality, she was ordering around her boss's son. So, she finally spoke, her voice dry and brittle. These past 2 months. You just been laughing at me. No, not at all. I quickly waved my hands. I was just here to experience life. Experience life? She let out a cold, sharp laugh. By pretending to be a worthless intern. Ms. Monroe, please don't misunderstand. Don't call me Ms. Monroe, she cut me off. I'm not worthy of the title. She turned and walked towards the door. She paused with her hand on the knob. Mr. Cole. She spat the name out from between her teeth. My letter of resignation will be on your desk tomorrow morning. The door slammed shut with a resounding thud. I ran a hand through my hair. Damn, I had really screwed this up. If my dad found out I scared away his most competent executive on my first day as a pseudo-VP, he would literally break my legs. I bolted out of the office. Ava. It was the first time I'd ever used her first name. She flinched, but didn't stop walking. I ran and cut her off before she reached the elevator. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. She tried to sidestep me, but I blocked her again. I didn't do it to mock you. Move, she said, her gaze colder than I had ever seen it. Not until you hear me out. I resorted to being a pest. My slacker persona was dead, so I might as well embrace the shameless one. She stared at me. Julian, do you think this is funny? No, I said seriously. It's not. I apologize. For everything I did these last 2 months, I'm truly sorry. I don't need your apology. Then what do you need? I need you to stay the hell away from me. She shoved me aside and stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut, cutting off her icy glare. I stood there, a massive headache blooming behind my eyes. This woman was even prouder than I had imagined. It made sense. A person like her, who had clawed her way to the top on her own merit, would despise someone like me, who was born at the finish line. I had lied to her and played her for a fool. The fact that she hadn't slapped me was a testament to her self-control. I walked back to the CEO's office. My office now, sinking into the massive leather chair. I felt no sense of victory. The next morning, just as she promised, a resignation letter was sitting on my desk. A crisp white envelope with her elegant handwriting on the front. Ava Monroe. I didn't open it. I knew what it said. I tossed it into a drawer and called for Mark Johnson. Mark, I need you to do something for me. Mr. Cole, anything for you. Mark was now so deferential, it was almost comical. I need you to find out where Ava Monroe is from and who's in her family. Mr. Cole, isn't that a bit of an invasion of privacy? Just do it. Yes, sir. Right away. Mark was efficient. Half an hour later, a file was on my desk. Ava Monroe, born in a small, remote town to a working-class family. She had a younger brother and sister. Her parents were farmers. From her first day of school, she was a star student. She'd put herself through college and grad school entirely on scholarships. She was her family's great hope. I looked at the names of the schools her siblings attended. Exclusive, private academies. Tuition was hundreds of thousands a year. I smiled. Ava Monroe, for all your pride, you have your weaknesses. I had Mark book me a flight to that small town. That same afternoon, I was standing in front of Ava's childhood home. It was a modest, rural house with a small yard where corn was laid out to dry. A middle-aged woman was feeding chickens. She looked up at me, startled. Can I help you, young man? Hello, ma'am. I'm looking for Mr. Monroe, I said. I'd already found out her father's name was David Monroe. You're looking for my husband? The woman eyed me with suspicion. And you are? I'm a distant relative. I improvised. She led me inside, still looking doubtful. The house was simple. A man in blue work overalls was sitting on the edge of a daybed, smoking a cigarette. He stubbed it out when he saw me. You are Mr. Monroe, hello. My name is Julian Cole. I placed the bottle of scotch and the gift basket I'd bought on the way onto the table. What's all this for? David Monroe frowned. Just a small token of my respect, sir. Please don't refuse. I chatted with him for a while, making small talk, and quickly learned what I needed to know. David had been injured in a construction accident a few years back and could no longer do heavy labor. The entire financial burden of the family rested on Ava's shoulders. Her siblings' tuition, living expenses, her father's medical bills. It was a staggering monthly sum. No wonder she worked so relentlessly. She wasn't living for herself. She was living for her entire family. Our Ava, she's been so sensible since she was a little girl, her mother said, her voice a mixture of pride and heartache. But she's too proud. She carries everything herself. That's right, her father sighed. She must have gone through a lot of hardship out there on her own. Listening to them, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I had seen her as an ice queen, a fortress. I never realized that fortress was built to withstand the weight of the world she carried on her shoulders. After saying goodbye to her parents, I didn't head back immediately. I drove to the private academy her siblings attended. I didn't go in. I just waited by the gate. When school let out, I saw them, dressed in their pristine uniforms, their faces bright with carefree smiles. They belonged to a different world than the small town I had just left. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. Then, I sent it to Ava. I knew she had blocked my number, so I used a standard text message. After the picture, I sent a single line of text. Your brother and sister are adorable. I put my phone away and drove to the airport. I knew she would call. Sure enough, I had just gotten back to the city when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Julian Cole. The voice on the other end was a tempest of panic and fury. What the hell do you think you're doing? Nothing much, I said, pulling my car over to the side of the road. Just enjoying the scenery in your hometown. Paid a visit to your parents, too. You dare touch them and why would I touch them? I brought your father a very nice bottle of scotch, I said calmly. Ava, we need to meet. Let's talk. I have nothing to talk to you about. Is that so? I let out a soft laugh. Your sibling's tuition is due soon, isn't it? I wonder what would happen if that prestigious school found out about their real family situation. The other end went silent. I could hear her ragged breathing. I knew I had her. It was a low blow, I knew that. But to deal with someone as proud as her, this was the only way. Where? After a long pause, she bit out the single word. I gave her the address of a cafe near the office. Half an hour later, I saw her push through the door. She had changed out of her corporate armor. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, her hair down. She looked less like a CEO and more vulnerable. Her face was pale, and her eyes were slightly red, as if she had been crying. She sat down across from me. "You win, Julian," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "Name your price." "My terms are simple." I slid a credit card across the table. "Come back to the company. Continue being the CEO. There's $5 million on this card. The pin is your birthday. Consider it. Payment for the trouble I've caused you these past 2 months." She stared at the card, not moving. "You think this is about money?" "I know it's not," I said, "but your family needs it. Your pride can't pay the bills." She looked up at me. "You investigated me. I just wanted to understand you better. Understand me, so you could use my family to threaten me?" She laughed, a bitter, desolate sound. "Julian, you and your father, you're cut from the same cloth." I froze. "What do you mean by that?" "It doesn't matter." She stood up. "I'll take the money, and I'll come back to the office. But make no mistake, from now on, our relationship is purely transactional." She picked up the card and walked out without a second of hesitation. I watched her go, the bitter feeling in my stomach growing stronger. She said I was just like my dad. What did that mean? What had my dad done to her? The next day, Ava Monroe was at the office right on time. She was back in her black power suit, her face an impenetrable mask. It was as if nothing had happened. She called a meeting with all the department heads and spent the entire morning issuing commands, a whirlwind of efficiency. She took personal charge of the billion-dollar project, burying herself in work. She didn't speak a single word to me. If we passed in the hallway, she looked right through me. I was now officially Mr. Cole, the chairman. I had an office bigger than hers, and my days were filled with signing documents and attending meetings. It was unbearably dull. I would have given anything to be that slacking intern again. One day, my dad made a surprise visit to the office. He called me into his office. "So, how are you enjoying the view from the top?" "It's fine. I heard you angered Ava so much she almost quit," he said, sipping his tea. "How do you know everything?" "You're my son. I know what you're up to before you do," he said, giving me a stern look. "That big project, it would have fallen through if it wasn't for you. But your methods were clumsy. Then what should I have done?" "Ava is a good kid, capable and tough," my dad said. "She just had a rough go of it. When I poached her from that investment bank, she was being harassed by her boss, on the verge of being driven out of the industry." My heart skipped a beat. "She told me I was just like you." My dad paused, then gave a weary smile. "So she still holds that against me." "What happened?" "Her boss at the time had powerful connections. To protect her, I had to use some less than savory tactics to get leverage on him and force him to resign," my dad explained. "But from Ava's perspective, what I did then probably feels no different from you using her family to force her hand now." I understood. In her eyes, my father and I were the same. Men who used their power to manipulate her life for their own ends. To someone as proud as her, that was the ultimate insult. I left his office, my mind heavy. As I passed the break room, I overheard a few female colleagues gossiping. "Hey, did you hear? I think Ms. Monroe has a boyfriend." "Really? Who?" "I think it's that CEO from Sterling Tech next door, Carter Hayes. He's tall, handsome, and a rich kid himself." "I heard that too. Someone saw him dropping her off home the other day." My hands clenched into fists at my sides. Carter Hayes, CEO of Sterling Tech. I pulled out my phone and Googled the name. Photos and a bio popped up instantly. The picture showed a man in a bespoke suit with slick back hair, smiling a polished, corporate smile for the camera. He was handsome enough, I guess. The bio said he was 30, a Harvard graduate who founded Sterling Tech after returning to the States. The company specialized in AI and had become a rising star in the industry over the past couple of years. His background was solid, too. His father was a real estate mogul, a classic Prince Charming type. On paper, he seemed like a perfect match for Ava. But as I looked at his face, a flicker of recognition sparked. I felt like I had seen him somewhere before. That afternoon, I had Mark bring me the file on Sterling Tech. As I reviewed it, I saw that they were our main competitor for a major government contract, a smart city development project. Both companies were pulling out all the stops to win it. Ava was our project lead. Carter Hayes was theirs. That explained their recent interactions. But was it just business? As I was leaving work, I lingered in the lobby for a few minutes. Sure enough, I saw Ava exit the elevator. Right on cue, a black Porsche 911 pulled up to the curb. The man who got out was Carter Hayes. He was holding a massive bouquet of unnaturally blue roses, a dazzling smile on his face. Ava, you must be exhausted. He offered her the flowers. Ava didn't take them. Carter, I've told you before, not at the office, she said, her tone frigid. What's there to be afraid of? Carter replied with a shrug. We're both single. There's nothing wrong with me pursuing you. I'm not interested in an office romance. Then it doesn't have to be an office romance, Carter said smoothly. Just say the word, come work for me. I'll double your salary and make you vice chairwoman. Ava frowned. Carter, please have some self-respect. She tried to walk around him, but he grabbed her by the wrist. Ava, don't play hard to get. Sterling is going to win the smart city contract. You can't beat me. Is that so? Ava struggled to pull her arm free, but his grip was too strong. Then we'll see what happens in the boardroom. Why make it so difficult? Carter's smile turned slick. Working with me is the smart move for you and for your company. You're a smart woman, Ava. You should know how to make the right choice. I had seen enough. I walked over. Let her go. My voice wasn't loud, but they both heard me. Carter turned, and his eyes fell on me. He looked confused for a moment. Then a smirk spread across his face. Well, if it isn't the intern. A little bold for an intern to be meddling in his boss's affairs, don't you think? He clearly hadn't been updated on my change in status. Ava saw me too, her expression unreadable. This doesn't concern you, she said to me. It does now. I looked straight at Carter and repeated myself. I said, let her go. Carter's smile vanished. Kid, do you have any idea who I am? I do, I said. You're the CEO of a company that's about to go bankrupt. He looked at me as if I'd lost my mind, then burst out laughing. Bankrupt? Are you dreaming? Sterling Tech is worth $30 billion, and you're telling me we're going under. It'll happen faster than you think. I took out my phone and dialed Leo's number. Leo, I need you to short a company called Sterling Tech. I want it wiped off the face of the earth as fast as possible. Leo whistled on the other end. Jules, what do they do to piss you off? All right, consider it done. You'll see results within 3 days. I hung up and looked at Carter, whose face had now turned grim. Now you can get lost. His eyes were filled with a mixture of disbelief and contempt. I'll talk. Who do you think you are? You think one phone call is going to bankrupt my company? He still hadn't let go of Ava's wrist. I sighed. It seemed a more direct approach was necessary. I grabbed his wrist. With a slight twist, he cried out in pain, and his hand flew off Ava. I didn't stop there. I spun him around and slammed him face down onto the hood of his Porsche. Let me go. Do you know who my father is? I don't care who your father is. I used my free hand to pat his cheek. Listen carefully. Stay away from her. If I see you near her again, I won't just bankrupt your company. I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. My voice was quiet, but he understood the message. Fear finally flickered in his eyes. I released him. He scrambled into his car and sped away, running over the bouquet of blue roses he'd left on the pavement. I turned to face Ava. She was just staring at me, her expression unreadable. Get in, I said. I'll take you home. She didn't argue. She quietly got into my car. My car was a low-key Volkswagen Phaeton, easily mistaken for a Passat. It suited my old intern persona perfectly. We drove in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. As we approached her apartment complex, she finally spoke. Thank you. Don't worry about it. Carter, he won't let this go. He will. I cut her off. She glanced at me, but didn't say anything more. I pulled up to her building. As she unbuckled her seatbelt, she hesitated. What you said earlier about making Sterling Tech go bankrupt. It's true. You can really do that. I can. She fell silent. Julian, she said, turning to look at me before she got out. The more I learn about you, the less I understand. With that, she was gone. I watched her walk into the building and smiled. That was the point. If you could figure me out so easily, how could I ever be your boss? Back in my apartment, as I was getting ready for bed, it finally hit me why Carter Hayes looked so familiar. During college, I'd attended an academic conference at Harvard. There was a huge scandal involving a student who was expelled for academic fraud. It was all over the campus news. That student's name was Carter Hayes. It seemed his company was just like him, a polished exterior hiding a rotten core. I sent a text to Leo. Dig into Sterling Tech's source code. See if you can find anything interesting. Leo's reply was immediate. On it. The next day at the office, Ava was already there, a faint darkness under her eyes suggesting a sleepless night. She avoided my gaze, gathered a stack of files, and disappeared into a conference room. She spent the entire day in meetings, making final preparations for the Smart City project pitch. In the afternoon, Leo called. "Jules, I've got a surprise for you," he said, his voice buzzing with excitement. 90% of Sterling Tech's core AI code is plagiarized. He ripped it off from a small startup in Silicon Valley. He didn't even bother to clean up the original comments. I grinned. "You have proof. It's all in my hands. I've already had the startup's lawyers send a cease and desist. An international lawsuit should keep him busy for a while." "Nice work." "It gets better," Leo said. "I also found evidence that several of his key AI patents are based on fabricated data. This isn't just plagiarism anymore. It's felony-level corporate fraud. Package everything up and send it to me." "You got it." After hanging up, I looked toward the conference room, at Ava's determined profile through the glass. I picked up my phone and sent her a text. "Come to my office." 7 Ava arrived a few minutes later, knocking lightly before entering. "Mr. Cole, you wanted to see me?" she asked, her tone reverting to a cold, professional formality. "Sit," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. She remained standing. "If there's something you need, please just tell me." "Are you still angry with me?" I asked. "I have no right to be angry with you, Mr. Cole." Her words were polite, but sarcasm dripped from every syllable. I sighed. "Look, I apologize again for what I did with your family." "There's no need," she said. "You gave me money, and I came back to work. We're even." "All right, then let's talk business." I turned my computer monitor towards her. On the screen was the dossier Leo had sent me, all of Sterling Tech's dirty laundry. Plagiarism, data fabrication, corporate fraud. The evidence was damning and overwhelming. Ava's eyes widened as she read, the icy composure on her face cracking and giving way to pure shock. Is all of this real?" 100%, I said. "The Silicon Valley company he stole from has already filed a lawsuit. Sterling Tech stock is about to tank. Carter Hayes is likely going to spend the next decade in prison." Ava stared at the screen, speechless for a long time. The hand holding her files was trembling slightly. I knew she was shaken. She had prepared for months, viewing Carter as her most formidable rival, only to discover he was nothing more than a fraudster in a fancy suit. "So," she looked up at me, "the Smart City project. We've already won." "You could say that, just because one phone call." "Yes." Silence descended on the office, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioner. After a long moment, she spoke again, her voice quiet. "Julian, just how many things are there about you that I don't know?" "A lot," I smiled. "If you want to know, I can tell you bit by bit." She looked at me, her expression a whirlwind of emotions. "Why are you helping me?" "You work for my company," I said, "and your pride shouldn't be trampled on by someone like Carter Hayes. So I decided to protect it." I said the word protect softly, but it landed with the force of a thunderclap. Ava visibly flinched, and a faint blush crept up her cheeks. I see." She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "If there's nothing else, I should get back to work." She turned to leave, like a startled deer. "Wait," I called out. I opened my desk drawer and took out the credit card. "This is yours." She turned back, her eyes widening when she saw the card. "What is this?" "I'll take care of your family's expenses," I said. "Your siblings' tuition, your parents' living costs. The company will cover all of it from now on. Consider it a special executive bonus." "I can't accept that," she refused immediately. "It's not charity," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "Ava, you are this company's most valuable asset. Ensuring you can work without worrying about anything else is the best investment this company can make. I take it, I said, my tone softening. Consider it the first official order from your new chairman. She looked at me, her lips parting as if to argue, but she said nothing. She walked back to the desk, took the card, and clutched it tightly in her hand. Thank you. This time, the coldness and distance were gone from her voice. In their place was a note of softness I had never heard before. The collapse of Sterling Tech was faster than even I had anticipated. As soon as the news of the plagiarism and fraud scandal broke, the stock price plummeted. Within 3 days, the company had lost 90% of its market value. Carter Hayes was taken into police custody for questioning. We won the Smart City contract without any competition. The office was ecstatic. Everyone praised Ava, hailing her strategic genius for leading them to victory. Only Ava knew the truth. That was all because of me. At the celebration party, she drank a little wine, a rare sight. Her cheeks were flushed. She walked over to me, holding her glass. Mr. Cole, I'd like to propose a toast. Don't call me Mr. Cole anymore, I said. Call me Julian. She paused, then a small smile graced her lips. It was a rare sight, and it was beautiful like the first thaw of spring. Julian, she said my name softly. This is to say thank you. She paused. And I'm sorry. I knew what she was sorry for all her earlier judgments and misconceptions about me. It's all in the past, I said, clinking my glass against hers. From now on, we're on the same team. She nodded and drank the entire glass of red wine in one go. After that night, our relationship entered a new, subtle phase. At work, she was still the decisive, formidable CEO, and I was the chairman who occasionally offered an opinion. But outside the office, we started having dinner together, talking. She told me about her frustrations at work. I told her embarrassing stories from college. I discovered that she wasn't an ice queen at all. The ice was just a wall she'd built to protect herself. With her guard down, she was incredibly charming. She would cry her eyes out over a sad movie and laugh like a child when she ate something delicious. One Friday, she told me she was going back to her hometown for the weekend. My parents want to thank you in person, she said, looking a bit shy. Okay, I said. I'm free this weekend. I'll go with you. You? She asked, surprised. What? Am I not welcome? No, it's not that. Her cheeks turned pink again. It's just, I'm worried that Phaeton of yours won't make it on the roads near my house. I laughed. Don't worry. I'll drive something else. On Saturday morning, I went to pick her up. I was driving a beat-up old Ford F-150. When she saw the truck, her jaw dropped. You're driving this. What's wrong with it? I patted the hood. An American classic. Tough as nails, can go anywhere. She looked at me in utter disbelief, but got in anyway. As we hit the highway, I blasted classic rock from the speakers and sang along at the top of my lungs. She sat beside me, staring out the window, her shoulders shaking. I knew she was trying not to laugh. When we arrived at her house, her parents were overjoyed to see me. They grabbed my hands, thanking me profusely, and insisted I stay for dinner. Her mom cooked a huge feast of incredible, down-to-earth country food. During the meal, her dad suddenly asked, So, Julian, you and our Ava are dating, right? Ava choked on a spoonful of soup, sputtering and coughing. Her face instantly turned the color of a ripe tomato. Dad, what are you talking about? She exclaimed, pounding on his back while trying to catch her breath. Julian and I are. We're just colleagues. Colleagues. Her father looked unconvinced. A colleague drives a rickety old pickup truck for hundreds of miles just to have dinner in the middle of nowhere. Exactly, her mom chimed in. I liked Julian the moment I saw him. He's handsome and so polite. Ava, you better not let this one get away. Mom. Ava looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I watched her flustered state with immense amusement. Clearing my throat, I put down my fork and looked at her parents with a serious expression. Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, I began. Ava shot me a panicked look. I winked at her. The truth is, I've been pursuing Ava for quite some time. Ava's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. But she's a bit shy, I continued smoothly. She hasn't said yes yet. I knew it. Her father slapped his thigh. That's our Ava for you. Always so reserved. Don't you worry, sir, I said. I'm a patient man. I believe with enough persistence, I can win her over. Well said. Her father raised his glass of whiskey. "Come on, Julian, let's have a drink." I quickly raised my glass. "To you, sir." The whiskey burned on its way down. Under the table, Ava stomped on my foot hard. I winced in pain, but kept a smile plastered on my face. The rest of the dinner continued in that wonderfully strange atmosphere. Her parents were now looking at me as their future son-in-law. Ava spent the entire time with her head down, eating quietly, the tips of her ears glowing red. After dinner, she dragged me out into the yard. "Julian Cole, what on earth were you talking about in there?" she whispered furiously, glaring at me. "What do you mean? I was telling the truth," I said innocently. When were you ever pursuing me?" she sputtered. "Starting now," I said, looking her straight in the eye. She was stunned into silence, staring at me, completely at a loss. The afternoon sun was warm, illuminating the fine, soft hairs on her face. Her long eyelashes trembled. If you don't agree, I'll go right back in there and tell your parents it was all a joke." I made a move to turn around. She grabbed my arm. "Don't," she said, a sense of urgency in her voice. "My parents, they're getting older. They can't handle that kind of shock." "So," I looked at her, waiting. "So," her voice was barely a whisper. "We'll just leave it as it is for now." She let go of my arm and hurried back in the house. I watched her go, a triumphant grin spreading across my face. When it was time for me to leave, her parents walked me all the way to the edge of the village, sad to see me go. "Julian, come back and visit any time." "I will, Mr. and Mrs. Monroe." "You take good care of our Ava. You hear? Don't you worry, Mom and Dad." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Her parents froze for a second, then burst into hearty laughter. Ava, standing beside them, turned a shade of crimson that reached her neck. She balled up her fist and playfully punched my back. "Stop talking nonsense," she scolded, but there was no force behind it. The drive back was completely different from the drive there. The air in the truck was filled with a new, unspoken sweetness. She wasn't staring out the window anymore. Instead, she kept stealing glances at me. When I'd catch her, she would quickly turn away. "Why are you looking at me?" I asked. "I'm not," she said defensively. "You think I'm handsome, don't you? You're so full of yourself. If I'm not handsome, why do you keep looking?" She fell silent. A moment later, she asked in a small voice, You call my dad?" "Dad?" "I did. You can't just call him that. Should I stop?" She went quiet again. In the rearview mirror, I could see the corners of her mouth turning up into a smile. This woman was adorably stubborn. Back at the office, our relationship became an open secret. Everyone knew, but no one said anything. Mark started treating me not just like royalty, but like the heir apparent. He was constantly at my desk, bowing and scraping. "Mr. Cole, your tea." "Mr. Cole, I brought some fresh fruit for you." I was happy to let it happen. With Ava running the company so capably, my role as chairman was mostly to drink tea, read the news, and now enjoy the beginnings of a romance. Life was good. One afternoon, as I was working in my office, my dad called. "Son, I heard you finally won over Ava." "News travels fast." "Of course it does. The whole company is talking about it," he said, chuckling. "Good work. You got more game than I did." He paused. "Speaking of which, I have something serious to discuss." "What is it?" "Next week is your grandfather's 80th birthday. I want you to bring Ava home to meet the family." I was taken aback. "Already?" "What do you mean, already?" "You're not getting any younger," my dad said. "This is the perfect opportunity to make things official." It's settled. Don't you dare mess this up." He hung up before I could protest. Holding the phone, I felt a wave of anxiety. Ava and I had only just started. Now I was supposed to introduce her to my entire extended family. Would she even agree? I walked to her office and hesitated at the door. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open. She was reviewing a document and looked up as I entered. "What's wrong?" I felt surprisingly nervous. "I need to ask you something." "Go ahead. My grandfather's birthday is next week, and my family. They want you to." Before I could finish, she smiled. "Okay," she said. Her agreement was so quick, so simple, it caught me completely off guard. "You're not nervous?" I asked. "Why should I be?" she replied, a playful glint in her eye. "It's time for the family to meet the bride, right?" She looked at me, her eyes shining with a complete and utter trust that took my breath away. My grandfather's 80th birthday party was a grand affair, held at our family's private estate in the countryside. All my aunts, uncles, and cousins were there. By the time I arrived with Ava, the long driveway was already lined with luxury cars. Ava wore an evening gown I had picked out for her, a pale blue dress that complemented her fair skin and cool elegance, making her look like a moon goddess. She was gripping my arm tightly, her palm damp with nervous sweat. "Don't be scared." I squeezed her hand. "I'm right here." She nodded and took a deep breath. We walked into the grand ballroom and instantly became the center of attention. I could feel dozens of eyes on Ava, curious, appraising, some openly envious. My parents rushed over to greet us. "Oh, you must be Ava," my mother said, taking her hands and beaming. "You're even more beautiful than in the pictures." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Cole," Ava said shyly. "Oh, none of that Mrs. Cole business," my father chimed in. "It's about time you started calling us Mom and Dad." Ava's face flushed a deeper shade of red. I quickly intervened. "Dad, Mom, don't scare her off." I led Ava to meet my grandfather. He was dressed in a festive red silk jacket, looking sharp and full of life as he sat at the head of the main table. Ava presented the gift she had prepared, a hand-embroidered tapestry of pine trees and cranes, symbols of longevity. "My dear Ava, how thoughtful," my grandfather said, accepting the gift with a warm smile. "You're a good girl." He slipped a jade bracelet from his own wrist. It was a stunning, translucent green. "Here, this is a little something from your grandpa." He slid the bracelet onto Ava's wrist. She was stunned. The piece was clearly priceless. "Grandpa, this is too much. I can't accept it." "Nonsense. It's a family heirloom, and you're the granddaughter-in-law of the Cole family. It belongs on your wrist," he said with finality. The term granddaughter-in-law echoed through the nearby tables. I saw the expressions on my relatives' faces shift, especially those of my female cousins. They looked at Ava with daggers in their eyes. I knew they had all, at one point, hoped to marry me. Now some nobody had swooped in and stolen the prize. They were not pleased. Sure enough, a short while into dinner, my cousin, Samantha, came over with a glass of champagne. "Julian, aren't you going to introduce us?" she asked, her smile not quite reaching her eyes as she looked at Ava. "This is my girlfriend, Ava Monroe," I said. "Ava, this is my cousin, Samantha." "Ms. Monroe, is it?" Samantha looked Ava up and down. "And where do you work?" "I work at Julian's family's company," Ava replied calmly. "Oh," Samantha dragged out the word. "So you're an employee? My, you must have some impressive skills to climb your way from the office all the way to the Cole family dinner table." The insult was sharp and ugly. Ava's face paled slightly. I was about to let loose, but Ava gently squeezed my hand. She smiled at Samantha. "You're mistaken, Samantha. I didn't climb. Julian carried me here on a golden platter." She tightened her grip on my arm. "He said he simply can't function without me." Samantha's face turned a sickly green. The relatives who had been watching the exchange were stunned into silence. They hadn't expected this quiet, elegant woman to have such a sharp tongue. I grinned at Ava, my heart swelling with pride. "That's my girl." Samantha, defeated, mumbled an excuse and walked away. I gave Ava a thumbs up under the table. "Nicely done." "Of course," she whispered back, lifting her chin proudly. "You don't get to be CEO by being a pushover." The rest of the evening went smoothly. After Samantha's failed attack, no one else dared to challenge Ava. When the party ended, my parents insisted that Ava stay the night. "It's so late. We have plenty of guest rooms. The one next to Julian's is all ready for you." Ava hesitated, but my mom took her by the hand and led her upstairs. I followed behind, grinning like an idiot. Later that night, after my shower, I tiptoed to Ava's room. Just as I was about to knock, the door opened. She had just showered too, and was wearing a set of pink cartoon pajamas. Her hair was still damp, and her face was fresh and glowing. She looked less like a CEO and more like the girl next door. What are you doing here?" she stammered, startled to see me. "Just checking to see if you're comfortable." "I'm fine." So, I rubbed my hands together. "My room's air conditioner seems to be broken." She blinked. "And I'm a little cold," I said, putting on my most pathetic face. She stared at me for a few seconds. Then her face slowly turned a deep shade of crimson. She bit her lip, then stepped aside. "Well, you can come in then," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. My heart leaped. I slipped inside. Her room smelled sweet like her. I immediately flopped down on her bed. Ah, your bed is so much softer than mine. She stood by the door, wringing her hands. You're sleeping here. Where else? I patted the empty space beside me. You can join me. Her face was now practically steaming. I'll sleep on the sofa. She grabbed a pillow and turned to leave. I shot up and grabbed her, pulling her back onto the bed. She let out a small yelp and tumbled into my arms. Her body was soft and warm. Don't go, I whispered in her ear. Just stay with me for a little while. She stopped struggling. Her body was still tense, but she didn't push me away. I held her, breathing in the clean scent of her hair, feeling a sense of peace I had never known. We lay there in the quiet darkness, just holding each other. After a while, I felt her breathing deepen and even out. I looked down. She had fallen asleep, curled up in my arms like a kitten, a faint, sweet smile on her lips. Looking at her peaceful face, my heart felt like it was going to burst with a feeling I could only describe as happiness. I leaned down and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. Good night, my CEO. No, my girl. After meeting the family, Ava and I were officially official. My parents were already asking about wedding dates. When I put the question to Ava, she blushed and said she'd leave it up to me. I immediately decided we would get married the next month. The news sent the entire company into a frenzy. Mark Johnson, our ever-enthusiastic project manager, hung a giant poster of us in the lobby with a cheesy caption, "A match made in heaven." It was tacky as hell, but I loved it. I handled all the wedding preparations myself, wanting Ava to focus on her work. From the venue to the dress, to the party favors, I made sure everything was the absolute best. I was going to give her the wedding of the century. A week before the big day, I took her for her final wedding dress fitting. When she stepped out of the dressing room in the white, diamond-encrusted gown, I swear my heart stopped. She was breathtaking, a princess from a fairy tale. "How do I look?" she asked, a shy smile on her face. "Beautiful," I said, walking over and taking her hand. "You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen." As we were having our moment, an unwelcome voice cut in. Well, if it isn't Ava Monroe. Long time no see." I turned to see a man in a black suit standing nearby, a heavily made-up woman on his arm. I recognized him instantly. Richard Sullivan, Ava's former boss from the investment bank, the one who had harassed her, the one my father had dealt with. Talk about bad luck. Ava's face went white. She instinctively tried to hide behind me. Sullivan's eyes roamed over her, slick with malice. "Getting married, are we? Who's the lucky guy? He's a fortunate man to land a beauty as capable as you." He was pretending not to know who I was. I knew it was intentional. "That's none of your business," I said coldly. "Oh, but we're old colleagues," Sullivan said with a slimy grin. "I have to congratulate her." He pulled a red envelope from his pocket. "A small gift." I didn't take it. "We're not friends." "Oh, but we are," he sneered. "Ava and I are very close. I know all sorts of secrets about her that you don't." His words were laced with insinuation. Ava was trembling. "Richard, what do you want?" she asked, her voice shaking but firm. "Nothing much," he said with a shrug. "Just to catch up over coffee. It's been so long. I've missed you." His gaze was like a snake coiling around her. That was it. I saw red. I stepped in front of Ava, shielding her completely. "I'll say this one last time. Get lost. Don't get cocky, kid." Sullivan's face darkened. "Just because you have money doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. I have enough dirt on Ava to ruin her reputation for good. If you don't want your pretty little bride-to-be to become a citywide joke, you'll be nicer to me." "Is that so?" I laughed. Threats are the one thing I don't respond to. I pulled out my phone and dialed Leo. "Leo, I need a background check. The name is Richard Sullivan. Used to work at Sterling Investments. I want all his dirty laundry. Now." Leo yawned on the other end. "Jules, you're calling me for small fry like this. Fine. Give me 5 minutes." I hung up and looked at Sullivan, whose face was starting to lose its color. 5 minutes, I said. "I hope your secrets are juicy." His bravado began to crumble. You can't scare me. I've done nothing wrong," he blustered, but the woman on his arm was already trying to pull away. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A file from Leo. I opened it. It was a comprehensive list of Sullivan's accomplishments, embezzlement, bribery, and worse. There were chat logs and videos of him using his position to coerce female subordinates. There was more than one victim. I held the phone out for him to see. Should I read these out loud? All the blood drained from Sullivan's face. He stared at the screen, shaking like a leaf. How? How did you get this? You don't need to know, I said. You just need to know that I have it. I put my phone away. Now, take your trash and get out of my sight before I change my mind and forward this to the police. Sullivan collapsed, his legs giving out from under him. The woman with him shrieked, tore her arm away, and ran. No, please don't call the cops. He whimpered, crawling towards me. I kicked him away. Get out. He scrambled to his feet and ran like the dog he was. I turned back to Ava. She was staring at me, her eyes red and glistening with unshed tears. I pulled her into my arms. It's okay, I whispered, stroking her back. It's all over. She finally broke down, sobbing into my chest, releasing years of pent-up pain and humiliation. I just held her tightly, letting her cry it all out. When she was finished, she looked up at me, her eyes puffy and red. Thank you. Silly girl, I said, wiping away her tears. You don't have to thank me. I'm your husband, and I will never let anyone hurt you again. The wedding was held on a cliffside lawn overlooking the ocean. The weather was perfect, sunshine and a gentle sea breeze. I stood at the end of the aisle, my heart pounding with a nervousness I had never felt before. When the music began, I saw her, walking slowly towards me on her father's arm. In her white gown, with the sunlight filtering through her veil, she was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. In that moment, I knew I was the luckiest man on earth. Her father placed her hand in mine. Son, I'm giving you my most precious treasure, he said, his voice thick with emotion. If you ever hurt her, I'll hunt you down. I promise, Dad, I said, squeezing Ava's hand. I will spend my life loving and protecting her. We stood before the officiant and exchanged our vows. Julian Cole, do you take Ava Monroe to be your wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, to love and to cherish, so long as you both shall live? I do, I said, my voice booming, wanting the whole world to hear. And Ava Monroe, do you take Julian Cole to be your husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, to love and to cherish, so long as you both shall live? I looked at her. She looked at me, her eyes shining with tears and happiness. I do, she said. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife. I lifted her veil and kissed her. Her lips were soft and sweet. The world erupted in cheers and applause around us. I picked her up and spun her around. Wife, I yelled. Husband, she laughed back. For our honeymoon, we didn't fly off to some exotic island. I got out my old Ford F-150, and we set off on a spontaneous road trip across the country. We visited her small hometown, my college campus, and countless places in between. We had no plan, no destination. We slept in the back of the truck, staring up at the stars, talking for hours. She told me she had never felt so free. I told her I felt the same. My entire life had been a pre-written script. School, inheritance, duty. It was a bore. Then she came along, a brilliant light that made everything vivid and meaningful. A month later, we returned to the city. My parents were already asking about grandchildren. I wasn't in a hurry. I knew it would happen when the time was right. Back at the office, not much had changed. Ava was still the powerhouse CEO, though now people looked at her with a new level of awe and envy. She was, after all, the chairman's wife. I was still the hands-off chairman, though I did add a crib to my office in anticipation. One day, during a board meeting, Ava suddenly felt nauseous and rushed out of the room. A little while later, she walked into my office, holding a lab report, her face a mixture of shock and joy. She handed it to me. 2 red lines. I was stunned. I'm going to be a dad. Yes, she nodded, her eyes welling up. I whooped with joy, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around. This is amazing. You're my lucky star, Ava. I was jumping around the office like a little kid. Mark heard the commotion and poked his head in. He saw the scene, and a knowing smile spread across his face. Congratulations, Mr. Cole. Congratulations to all of us. I declared, everyone in the company gets a double bonus this month. 10 months later, Ava gave birth to a healthy baby boy. He looked just like I did as a baby. My parents were ecstatic. My grandfather personally named him Adam Monroe Cole. He said he hoped our son would be as brilliant as his mother and know how to cherish his wife, like his father. On the night of his 1-month celebration, I held him in my arms, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of our apartment. Ava leaned against me, and together we looked out at the glittering city lights. "Julian," she said suddenly, "thank you." "For what?" "For coming into my life, and for letting me become the person I was always meant to be." I leaned down and kissed her forehead, then our son's soft cheek. "Me too," I said. "Thank you, my love. You're the one who made my life complete." Outside was the dazzling city skyline. Inside was my whole world. This, I thought, is what happiness feels like.